Boy, wasn't supposed to share that.
All right, and we are live. So welcome everyone to our regular council meeting for Monday, January the 8th, our first official council meeting of 2024. So happy New Year. Before we begin, if you are able, I would ask that you stand and join us for the pledge of our national anthem. We'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions, and it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. And we encourage residents to review the call to action information, which can be found by visiting the links which are included on our website. Reminder for members to declare any pecuniary interest they may have with respect to any agenda item tonight. See any now. If something arises as we go through, we can do it at that time. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve minutes from our regular meeting held December 11th, 2023. Egan, seconded by Councillor Sample. Any discussion on those? None, all in favor? It's carried. Takes us to public question period. Any questions from the public? Mr. Button.
How are you? Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
How you doing? Happy to be here.
First off, I just want to wish everybody a happy new year and always learn before you have something to say something positive. Well, I'd like to say that as a resident of the town of Shelburne, I'm very impressed with the OPP coverage of the town. As you're well aware, I'm retired now, so a lot of free time. And on average day, I see at least 3 cruisers on patrol in the town of Shelburne. And I guess they don't have a station here anymore, so there's nobody parked in front of the town hall. And when I pop into the station for a visit, very seldom is anyone in the office. So I just want to commend those that supported the OPP. That is a really good decision. And I think the public are happy. And there was a lot of controversy when it took place. But I can tell you, I see 3 cruisers in Shelburne every single day. And Deputy Dan here, I think he supports what I have to say, is when he was working in Shelburne, they're everywhere. So, you know, I don't care what everybody else says. I just want to commend those that supported it. It was a good decision. So for that. So I'm here actually as a result of a conversation or an email I received from Ms. Wagner, Councilor Wagner. She reached out to me because of the delay in the length of time. It's coming up 6 years for the naming of the street. Lindsay was very kind to reach out and say that this wasn't going to get done, that she would consider through her Heritage Committee to use Chief Lemke Way as a name of the street behind my dad's old house. It was very nice for her to offer that up because, as I said before, this has been going on for 6 years, and for anybody that knows Walter's not here, but anybody knows my mom, she never swore, but she does now. And I won't repeat what she said, but she's gonna be 88 in April, and she just can't figure why it takes so long to have something done. So on that note, after speaking to Wade this afternoon, yeah, I understand that, I don't know, is Steve on now?
Yes.
Is he logged in? Okay.
So, you answered some questions late this afternoon, while I had already planned to come. So I understand that there is some progress being made. The other thing I asked is that you talked about elderly people, your grandmother, my mom, they don't understand why things take so long. I just asked if the mayor could simply give her a two-liner saying, it's in the progress and it's gonna get done. You know, and I'm not asking for a lot, but just something to appease her, because I have trouble accepting the fact that my dad's been dead 6 years. The motion was made within 2 weeks of his passing, and we've never made no progress. So I'm only asking if that could happen.
Yeah, and I have no problem doing that. Be happy to do that for your mom. We can certainly-
You know what, elderly people, she'll hang on to that thing, it's just sort of something holding on to it till it does happen.
Yep.
You and I did have a conversation, and we won't to really get involved any further with that, because I trust what you said. And thank you, Lindsay, for reaching out to me, but I think what we talked about is probably more real, is more.
What's something tangible that she can,
Right, and also I think under the circumstances, I was 54, naming the streets, as we said about the two Mordens, the fire chief and the mayor. And we drive down the street and says Morden Way or Morden Drive or Morden Way. We do not know who that guy was. Was it mayor? Was it the former mayor or the former fire chief? Second was Murray Holloway. You know, in the future, maybe we should consider like Colonel Filch, maybe if it was named after somebody that was a counselor or a mayor or something, we put their title in front of it for people and their families to know what it was about, opposed to, I know about Mordens, I know about Murray Holloway, but a lot of people don't know the history. So I'm just asking you if that be considered.
yeah, and just to sort of clarify, I mean, you and I talked about this, but I won't put this in the letter for your mom, but I mean, you can maybe explain that to her.
Yeah.
The 6 years that have passed, I mean, when the motion was originally adopted to accept that name as, you know, one of the recommended lists, I mean, that doesn't start any sort of clock, you know, right? So it's not as though there have been delays in the process, it's just there are a limited number of new streets that come up. And when they do, you know, it's up to the council today to decide which names we use.
Right.
So as you know, there are a couple that are gonna be coming up here in the relatively near future.
Right.
And Lemke is certainly one of the.
And like I said, I respect, if it's not going to happen, I respect that decision. But then I'll go down the road with Councilor Wagner and go that second road, but it's just, you know, it's time, like. Either it has to be done or it doesn't have to be done.
Well,
That's
and
three answers.
for your mom, you know, at her age, yeah. We can give her a letter to sort of put her mind at ease.
I hope that her memory's still well enough, but it's slipping, that she knows what's going on when it does transpire. That's all I'm asking, you know, I think anybody around the table will do the same thing for their parents.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
For sure.
Second thing, is one thing that's gonna rear its ugly head, and this will be the last time I address it. With respect to transparency of the hiring process, I haven't been public about my application for the part-time bylaw enforcement officer. I've got a package. I really haven't experienced it back. I've got a little information from different parties. All I will say, extremely disappointed. I think the process was flawed. It was not transparent, and I really believe that my application was not considered because of previous issues between the CEO and the clerk regarding the development of the properties on Sound Street. I will not go in any deeper on that. All I will say that Orangeville, Brampton, Dufferin County, and Woolwich Township do not require anyone to have a certificate from the municipal bylaw enforcement officer certificate. Nobody requires that upon hiring. It's a 3-week course, 40 hours over 3 years, very minimal. I was ruled out because apparently I did not have that certificate. And the situation being is that it was never in the posting. Now, my experience has always been if you post a job, and I worked for the police for 40 years, when you post something.
Bruce, I'm just gonna stop there for a second, because this is a question.
Okay, sorry. So my question is, was it transparent?
I think you've asked that question once before in a public setting and you're provided with an answer, whether you like the answer or not.
Okay, that's fair.
That's subjective,
My
but
question will be then, we use the examples of Orangeville, don't open their town hall at lunch. But yet Orangeville don't require bylaw to be, when they hire them, the new hires to have the course. So why do we pick and choose what we're gonna follow, what Orangeville does? That's what.
yeah. I think it's up to the hiring.
No, fine, but I've done my homework, I just said you can't pick and choose what you're gonna follow Orangeville at.
How many, just for reference, how many applications did you have for that position?
83.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that I wasn't treated fairly, and those people that made those decisions know whether I was or wasn't. And I'm gonna drop that issue, that will not be fair if I'm head again. However, the other two issues are together. I want to know why the drop barrel for the batteries cannot be placed back in the front lobby like we had before COVID. I'm tired of listening to COVID ruins everybody's life. Why can that barrel go back in? Because there is a camera there if anybody puts garbage in it.
So we made the decision to not do that. We provided you with a number of options that you can choose to drop your batteries off. You can put your battery 24/7 through the drop box at the staff entrance. That battery will then be deposited and staff will take care of it. Alternatively, you can bring your batteries to the counter and staff can deposit them for you. We have created what we believe is an adjustment, right? Sorry, I'm still feeling with that. To the appearance of our lobby, which we are quite proud of. So we have, I think I've sent you 3 to 4 emails on this specific topic. We actually had staff today bring in their bag of batteries. I would suggest you take one of those options before you and utilize them.
So again, my question is, why do you feel the need to take it to the lobby when you have a camera there? Because your reasoning was there was garbage being put in.
We did outline that that is the case. Irrespective of having a camera that we can see the garbage being put in, we still have to manage the removal of that garbage. I think I also mentioned to my council colleagues that at the same time that that issue came back to us again, that is when Canada Post moved. And they actually have a sign on the mailbox that said this is not a garbage can. So it's not a productive use of staff's time to remove garbage, which could contaminate potentially that, because if it has any other thing. Again, what I've outlined to you in emails and verbally again tonight is you have ample opportunities for the convenience that you choose to look at to dispose of your batteries. Additionally, you get the bag that comes from Dufferin County through the waste management program. You can put that in your box during the designated times per year. Additionally, there is an electronic waste depository throughout the year, and Shelburne is usually one of those locations. So if you collect them, you can take them there. That's my answer.
Through the mayor, I thank you for your response. You pulled me in the goose chase. You sent me to the arena. You didn't know where it was.
Did not. So respectfully, Mr. Lemke, I did not send you on a goose chase. I just outlined to what Dufferin County has
I wasn't finished my
as the
statement.
location.
Wait, okay,
The arena does not know.
Bruce, you've asked the question, you've been given an answer again, doesn't mean you're gonna like the answer,
No.
but that's the answer.
So thank you very much for your time. But just so everyone knows, I will be making an effort. As I've said before, if we can't get any cooperation through the CEO, I will be making an effort, going publicly, also social media, to encourage people to contact the town hall, to open it up during lunch hour, as well as getting the batch put in there. And I promise you that I have lots of spare time. I'll make an
And that's fine, and you and I talked about that this afternoon, and I was honest with you, and I would ask any of my colleagues to certainly speak up, but I honestly have not had any other resident raise either the batteries or the lunch hour closure as an issue. Has anybody else heard that? I mean, if there were a groundswell of people saying, look, this is really creating an inconvenience for us, I think that's something that we could, reasonably look at. But, if one person out of
Okay, that's fair.
9,500 has an issue,
It's just like the bank closes at 12 noon for lunch. This is a service that taxpayers pay for, and I don't agree with it, but I'll make my efforts in my spare time to muster up some more people that are concerned, and thank you for your time.
okay, thank you. Were there any other questions submitted? All right, so council inquiries. Councilor Schrader.
Hi, I have three council inquiries. The first one, I've had a few people complain about the access to Red Brick Lane, side entrance of 121 Adelaide. In addition to the driveway extension that was put in there a while ago, there's now a cement pad, and as well as a eavesdrop that comes pretty much right out of the lane. And when there are work trucks parked along there, as there currently are, it makes that turn really tight. I'm just wondering if they're in compliance.
Jim?
Through your worship. Yes, we have been in contact with the property owner as soon as that asphalt apron for his garage approaches was installed. We did ask that there be a proposal put forth to staff and SBA or our town engineers. That didn't happen before he went ahead, so we did have him alter that. So in the last couple of weeks, it has been cut down and pushed back. The concrete lip or landing by the side door of the new building is actually on his property, along with the downspouts and that. The back laneway, it's not terribly easy to find the property lines. Some are in line with the bell boxes, hydro poles, others aren't, but it is actually on his property. So we did have to make a compromise there with cutting the asphalt down to a point, and we did have him put in traction grips there, etch the asphalt as well for traction there as well, because staff was worried about that. So we had dealt with that issue now. As for the vehicles being parked there, he is wrapping up that construction, so he should be pretty well done that in very near future. But we have commented on that before too, that it's intrusive there for snow removal of that as well.
So hopefully that's just a temporary issue.
Okay, thanks. The second is one of our citizens, Steve McNeil. He's participating in the National Skate Day for all charities. It's on Saturday, January 13th, 2024. And it's called the 1926 National Skate Day for all charities in memory of his mom, Eunice, who was born in 1926. He will be skating for 19 hours and 26 minutes, starting at midnight, Nathan Phillips Square, and ending at 7:26 in the morning, and asking that a donation of $19.36 be donated to the charity of your choice. It was originally for Alzheimer's, and now it's opened up to all charities. He's had an interview. There's an article in the More of Our Canada magazine this month, and he has an interview this Thursday with Rod from Country on 5. So I just wanted to give a little shout out and a nod to on that.
And if any of our other media friends are watching,
Yeah, it's a good.
put a shout out.
Sure. Okay. Then the last one is in relation to, I was given a press release over the holidays about exemptions to street parking overnight during the holiday season. The town of Georgina, who receives a lot more snow than we do, has an exemption for street parking from December 22nd to January 2nd, where it does not, there's no bylaw enforcement and ticketing for the vehicles to allow for people to stay overnight, and visit friends and family. And they've had too much to stay over and use the vehicle. All, in this case, all other parking restrictions apply, so you can't park on the sidewalk, you can't park on the grass, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other one is New Tecumseh, which is Alliston, Deaton, and Tottenham. It's a lot more vague, but there no enforcement from December 16th to New Year's Day, and it just makes a general blanket comment. Please be considerate of snowplow operators. So I'm just wondering if there's a appetite for staff to have a look at some sort of a holiday exemption for overnight parking.
There is some history to that. Councilor Sample will remember when you and I think were like freshmen. Yeah. So we were, we brought that up and I think we did do it one year and we've talked about it in other subsequent years. And I know that staff have some concerns, but I'll let Denise.
So
provide her
we can
thoughts.
certainly look into that for next year.
I'd
Based
certainly-
on those examples that you gave, we would want to collect the data on how it works for them administratively and operationally, but to your point, if some of those communities do get as much snow or more than this. I think that's what we need to look at. I know in other communities, what they have provided as opposed to those exemptions, they've designated municipal lots and or community park lots as options for you to consider. It doesn't create then a logistical issue with respect to the Georgina example in particular. For example, it sort of almost transferred to the homeowner or the resident to determine whether or not they think there's a snow event. That could create a real communication challenge between operations and bylaw and the resident, where now, the resident doesn't believe there's a snow event, operations says there is a snow event, we have to then tell bylaws a snow event and to tick. But all that said, I think the essence of what you're trying to have us look at is to provide some flexibility for those that need flexibility during the holidays. And we can look at how that can potentially be supported and what makes the most sense for you.
And in a year like this one, when the forecast was wide open, it's a little easier to make that call,
In
but.
fairness,
in a
last
fiscal-
year, the snow banks
Yeah.
were this high.
Exactly.
And so this year was probably, it was frustrating perceptually for a lot of people. You have a removal of snow on-street parking in snow and you aren't removing any snow. But in fairness, through the minimum maintenance standards, which the resident need not acknowledge, nor should they need to care, what we do is if we reach certain thresholds on temperature and road, we have to apply application. So we'll be out there with the salts and from the stand. Those would still be blocked with respect, that you're not gonna get blocked with snow, but that would still impede our ability to do that operational care, which has on the minimum maintenance standards can trigger legal obligations for us. So we'll address all this in the staff report. I think, we'll come up with some solution. It may be designated parking throughout the town, which means if you have a colleague or a friend or a relative, the inconvenience for you is you need to drop them off and pick them up and get them from point A to point B, but that still provides you with dedicated overnight parking that is safe.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing it up, and to be honest, I'm sure everybody else around the table is in the same boat. I just hadn't even thought about it at our last council meeting.
Yeah.
And then we worked together as a group again, and, but, we have a little less than a year.
It was on
Yeah.
my ticket, but then when it came in, it was all budget time.
Yeah.
So that's talking about the budget and.
It's busy with end of year stuff, and so,
So I think it's something that we need to look at, and I do agree, but yeah. Some meetings when it comes to that. so-
you have to balance it
You
too.
got to balance it,
Two
absolutely,
needs,
but
yes, if there's a way to sort of encourage people to leave their cars when they shouldn't be driving, I'm all for it. Okay. All right, that was it, right? That's it.
So we'll try to have that report to you for August, so it's well in advance of any consideration for the holiday that I'll put it back in one week for the bylaw, so that it's dedicated to that parking. So we would want to have that schedule adjusted.
We have a bit of time.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. All right. Anybody else? Councilor Smith?
couple items. First two were for Jim there, and this is the second I have concerned with the sunken walkway on the street there that's I just emailed you about. When I looked, it was from cabling that's been put in place. Same property that has the pole issue, second pole's been waiting to be removed. And they're not there yet. It was by last week, but walkway has not been repaired yet, so.
Through your worship, we did pass that along to Scone or Shelburne Towns Development engineer. We haven't heard back from them yet. We've had a lot of people who were still taking last week's vacation. So hopefully they're back this week and we can work that through with them. It looks like it was stones were removed and it was trench full. There was frost in the ground or something and then reinstated and not having it packed or anything, warmed up again and it's collapsed. So it's something that we'll definitely have on the list as a deficiency for that, you know, along with the poles as well.
Can we put something there signifying that the ground is dropped, like a pylon or something, or mark the ground or something? I know it's snow and everything, but there should be something put in place there.
Yeah.
The owner has put a garbage can there temporarily, but then, you know, it just happens to get moved and all that kind of stuff. So we can look at something to put there just to,
Through your worship, we have hundreds of pylons, so we can spare a couple there and put it at the end of the walkway. Is it like at the end of the sidewalk?
it's not a sidewalk, so his walkway comes off the property right into the road.
Okay.
And then when they trench for the cabling, it's sunk right there.
Okay.
And it's actually fairly deep. It's not just a little bit, it's actually dropped quite a bit, so. Okay, so. Then sure during CAO's report on traffic calming Robert Street will be part of that conversation.
Robert.
I noticed, so. I read it, so I was making sure it was brought up again to me, so I want to make sure that the person watching, I could say and discuss it, so. Okay, thank you. Okay. And I do agree with your requirements.
Still.
Yes.
All right, anyone else? Okay, all right, so the first report is from our planner regarding the development charges funding agreement for new intersection and highway improvements, as well as public washrooms at the Fieldgate Emerald Crossing development. So Steve, are you?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there we go. So we can actually see you too.
Excellent.
And it
Happy
doesn't
New
sound
Year.
like there's a delay.
Good. Well, it looks good, the new setup. So happy New Year, everybody. Good to be with you. And thank you for letting me join the meeting virtually tonight. Mike McLean from Fieldgate is here as well in case you have any questions about this specific report or other aspects of the subdivision that's under development. As outlined in my report, this is in relation to the Emerald Crossing development, which we all know is in the northeast part of town, north of Highway 1089 or Main Street and east of County Road 124. And the subdivision's well along now. The homes are being occupied and expect the remaining occupancies to occur through the first quarter of this year. And the commercial plaza has been up and running for some time now. There's another vacant commercial block to be developed coming following some site plan applications and approvals for that. And then there's one vacant block that has some servicing considerations with respect to the wastewater plant upgrade. This report is much like the agreement that was put forward a couple of years ago for the new intersection or the signalized intersection at Highway 10 and Colonel Phillips Drive. So as we know, these intersections along provincial highways and the related turning lanes, sidewalks, et cetera, are pretty expensive endeavors and have a lengthy environmental assessment process and design process with the MTO. And the MTO simply assigns the cost of all that work to the municipality or the developer, whoever is willing to pay for the work. But as we know as well, these projects do not always just benefit one landowner and have other benefits associated with them. And as such, in order to adjudicate the costs and make sure they're shared fairly amongst the benefiting properties, the town created a special East area rated development charge for Shelburne East, which includes these specific improvements. Fieldgate has, the developer has actually completed those upgrades, the new intersection, the sidewalks along the east side of County Road 124 between Anishinaabe Drive and Highway 1089. The new sidewalk on the north side of Highway 1089 from the new intersection to the existing intersection at County Road 124, and then the new sidewalk on the west side of County Road 11, south of Highway 1089. There's a table in my report that compares the costs of those improvements as they were anticipated in the 2020 development charges background study with the actual costs as submitted by Fieldgate. You can see the intersection cost was pretty close to what was estimated. And again, those are $20 versus what the actual cost was for completing it in the past year and a half to 2 years. And then the sidewalk and the existing intersection improvements, only part of that work has been done. So there are more improvements that will be needed in the future to that existing intersection. Those would occur alongside other developments in the area as they occur, or when MTO deems they're necessary and when funds are available to do that. And then the public washrooms are part of this agreement as well. This is something that in both this development and Highland Village development, we have moved towards sanitary pumping stations that include public washrooms with the location of the pumping station in the park block. So that will be public washrooms available for users of the park and the public in general once those are fully assumed by the town and those parks are operational. The cost of the washrooms came in a little lower than the estimate in 2020. Basically, this agreement would facilitate the reimbursement of the development charge funds paid by Fieldgate towards the east area improvements in line with the cost that they pay to actually make those improvements, including the new intersection and the sidewalks referenced. And for the public washrooms, which would be from the Parks and Recreation portion of the development charge on the townwide development charge. As noted in my report, those funds are already available on reserve as they've been collected from prior development. And it just noted as well that while that will deplete the East Area DC reserve account based on the current balance, there are some additional blocks that will be developed as well as other properties in the East Area that are proposed for development that will replenish some reserves into that account for the remaining improvements. This was reviewed with the town's engineers to make sure all of the cost submissions were reasonable and supported with the appropriate documents. And the town engineer confirmed after some comments were addressed by Fieldgate that the amount is supported and acceptable and that those amounts have been put into the funding agreement. And then the funding agreement and the amounts were reviewed with the clerk and the Director of Financial Services, Carrie, and Denise as well. To confirm the repayment process. MTO has also confirmed their acceptance of the new intersection work and has released their agreement on that work and has assumed that intersection under their responsibility. And then I just linked it to the relevant council strategic priorities relating to infrastructure and services, balanced growth, and pedestrian-friendly transportation networks with the new sidewalk and pedestrian signal heads. So if you have any questions about the agreement and the report, I'm happy to answer them. If the agreement is supported tonight, what would happen is once it's been executed by Fieldgate and by the mayor and the clerk in accordance with the bylaw, upon execution, the two payment amounts would be released to Fieldgate from the East Area Development Charge account for the intersection and sidewalk work and from the Parks and Recreation account for the washrooms work. So that's my presentation of the report.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions? All right. Okay, if there are no questions, then can I have a motion to receive the report and provide for the reading and enacting of bylaw number 3-2024, which is a bylaw to enter into a municipal works funding agreement with Shelburne 89 Developments Limited, substantially in the form attached to the bylaw for highway improvements and a new signalized intersection at Highway 10 and 89 on the Ojibway Road, as well as new public washrooms for the future county park and developments. Verdi, seconded by Mr. Sample. In favor? It's carried. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
is bylaw to authorize the town to enter into an agreement with the province regarding the connecting link funding. Self-explanatory. We want funding. We have to enter into the agreement. Any questions on that? For the seconder then? Speaking, seconded by Schnabel. All in favor? Carried. Next is the bylaw to authorize borrowing of $11,494,768. I've had one question on this already, Gary, and I assured individuals that this does not mean we actually are borrowing that, but I promise that you would be able to provide a much more wholesome explanation of it, so I'll let you do that.
Yes, so this, thank you through the mayor, is a requirement of the municipality. And what it's for is to secure that, it's like a line of credit basically at the bank. So that if we ever found ourselves not able to pay our expenditures because of uncollected taxes, we have this availability to borrow at the bank without having to go through any further process. In the 10 years I've been here, we've never utilized it. Fortunate enough that our bank flows with our reserves. So as long as we still have our reserves, we've got cash in the bank.
We do this every year. Any questions?
Yeah, that's a quick question. How did you come up with the $11,494 and this $768?
In the municipal act, there's actually a formula.
Okay.
So it is 75% of what we intend to collect this year through our property taxes and our water and sewer bills.
All right. All right, is there a mover and seconder then for the bylaw? Councilor Majority. All in favor? Carried. All right, and the monster report. Is our traffic comments more. So sit back, relax, and let Denise walk us through this one.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. As council is aware, and I'm gonna apologize in advance if my voice starts to fade. It seems to do that. Because of my absence at September 11th meeting, as I was one of many dealing with COVID pretty long. It's a haul. So tonight, the presentation team will be myself, Jim Mock, the Director of Development Operations, and like Will. Manager of operations folks. Sorry.
You don't get it that.
This report was a result of significant work with the team. Jamie Cassidy unfortunately is ill tonight as well, so she's not joining us, and I want to give credit and tremendous thanks to Chad Smith, our GX coordinator, for all the work he did, and that's represented in this. So it is a comprehensive report. We're anticipating that all in is going to be about an hour. That will be influenced by how many questions you may or may not have with this part of the session. So I'm going to start, and then we're just going to move between us on this team, and we'll again, I think in case of this report, any questions as we present would probably be more strategic, and the way to go is opposed to waiting till the end. So I'm just before I get to the traffic calming, I think a little preamble that we are not alone in dealing with this. That this seems to be an emerging significant issue as well as cost for many municipalities that are grappling with this. What's very frustrating and equally disappointing from a staff perspective is that we are dealing with this at all. And why are we dealing with this is because people are disrespectful of speed limits that are set for the safety of this community. And our speeding, as will walk us through in Jim, at some speed levels that are just more than disheartening and are threats to public safety. So with that said, my little philosophy, so traffic calming is a very common approach to physically slowing down traffic in a different in a means and ways that can involve physical barriers, forcing motorists to pay more attention to the environment around them, ultimately what it's trying to do is create solutions that are making those streets safer. It's not only about speeding, it's about driving behavior. So traffic calming may be about distracted driving and things that you notice. So we've seen a whole range of tools in neighborhoods. One of the things that speeding can create is challenges where cut throughs, for example. If people are not happy because they're congested or they can't speed, they find other locations. So the cut throughs often and unfortunately end up dumping that traffic into residential neighborhoods, which are not prepared to handle that kind of interaction with cars. They're designed more for pedestrians or bikes or safety. So traffic calming generically will support slowing speeds. It will, again, increase not only the functional, but the perception of safety for non-motorized users on the street so that they feel confident that they can utilize those streets. We're helping hopefully achieve some kind of uniform driving patterns, which I think is the ultimate challenge that we're faced that we're not. We're hoping that when people choose to live in a smaller community or any community, when they choose to live on that street, they assume that coming with that purchase or that home or that property is safety, and that they feel that walkability is something that they shouldn't be taking for granted or have to question. It's just innate, and unfortunately, that's not always the case for some of the streets in our communities, as well as specifically in Shelburne. Again, the data will show that. And we also want to create balance. So the Vision Zero, which we are not approaching, says that there needs to be a shift from a shift from a car-focused exclusive vehicle to one that equates a balance between vehicles, pedestrians, and non-vehicle users, so that they can actually create access for them on a corridor that's safe. So, as I mentioned, there's a whole series of measures that we can undertake. These are not without cost, and it's important that it's recognized that potentially this will be an escalating cost as we go forward in future budgets. So council had asked us on October 30th to specifically review speed limits outside of the urban boundary of the town of Shelburne coming into Shelburne on the other side of the Steelgate development. I just wanted to note that we certainly are going to come back with an additional staff report on that. And we actually advised MTO staff the day after the meeting in that direction that this was in play. I should also note, which I did at the beginning, that originally when the December 8th agenda, 11, sorry, when it became public around the 8th, we shared that immediately with the OPP, with Dufferin County staff, and with MTO staff. And prior to this report, because of EMS related speed cushions and speed bumps, we did give fire just a heads up that it was recommended. So as Shelburne Council is fully aware, oh, that's not me. Jim, you're now. Do the next section.
Your worship, the 40 km/h speed limit for town of Shelburne roads. With the highway traffic act, unless there is a posted speed limit, the default in urban areas is 50 km/h and 80 in rural sections. In July of 2021, council approved that all streets within the town of Shelburne, with the exception of the connecting link, be dropped to 40 km/h. We do have Appendix 1 showing our current mapping for our speed limits, as well as Appendix 2, which gives us our classifications of our roads. So. At that time, the connecting link, it still remains 50 km/h. The Ministry of Transportation has advised the town previously that they didn't support the drop to 40 km/h, but that was a decision for Shelburne Town Council, and we just need to provide them with an approved bylaw if it was passed. We do have a bylaw attached to this in Appendix 3, bylaw 67-2023. This was coming to the December council meeting and was postponed. So that has proposed speed reductions for the connecting link. Sections of County Road 11 and 121 within the town of Shelburne are 60 km/h. This does include four crossings and a planned school crossing as well in 2024. There also are several entrances to businesses in this corridor. This report does recommend that the County of Dufferin be approached to reduce their speed limit on their roads to 40 kilometers an hour. And that is included in Appendix 4.
But so can you just clarify that we're not asking for all of 11, we're starting, so it literally it's where we designated that we feel that corridor would make sense to have it drop to 40. So it's not usually around the bend on 11 past Ice River Springs and those industrial properties, it's within. It's very prescriptive on where we request.
Yeah. Community safety zones, 30 kilometers an hour, limits in other communities. The purpose of community safety zone is to indicate to motorists that they're within a zone where fines have been increased. Typically, these fines are doubled for speeding in community safety zones. A map of our current community safety zones is Appendix 5 in this report. And the locations that we have for crossing guards, including the expanded locations for 2024 is provided in Appendix 6 of the report. Some communities have reduced speed zones in these community safety zones to 30 kilometers an hour from 40. Some examples are the Waterloo region, City of Waterloo, Ottawa, Greater Sudbury, and City of Toronto, as well as the City of Cambridge. Additional review of this analysis of travel speeds can be completed in 2024. At that time, the staff can make further recommendations. Without this data, staff would not recommend a drop to 30 in these zones currently. And the traffic calming measures, there are common traffic calming measures, and in no particular order, we have a number of them outlined here. Automatic speed enforcement, community safety zones, curb extensions, curb radius reductions, digital radar speed signs, education for the public, enhanced crosswalks with bollards, flexible bollards or delineators, lane narrowing, lower speed limits, which we've also done, on-street parking to give that visual restriction to the road, pavement markings as well, raised intersections, raised median islands, road chicanes or under road design when you're looking at a subdivision or whatnot. We use that up in Greenwood subdivision in the northeast end of town. Speed cushions, textured crosswalks, traffic enforcement, and traffic roundabouts. Not listed in the traffic calming measures are stop signs or all-way stops, as outlined in the Ontario Traffic Manual number 5. Regulatory signs, these should be limited to control right-of-way conflicts in general. They should not be used where traffic engineering studies consider such factors as traffic speed, volumes, restricted sight lines, and collision data to show if a stop is warranted. Where these signs should not be used, they should not be used where the protection of pedestrians and school children in particular is a primary concern. This can be addressed through other means or as a speed control device. So again, they're not to be used for that, more to control right-of-way conflicts. We are looking at that with the location form I mentioned over on Robert Park. We've assessed it numerous times in the past. It doesn't qualify under the stop sign policy. With some of the signs that have been added recently, it does appear to be, which may be throwing some confusion to pedestrians as well as drivers, an official crosswalk. So we've noticed during school hours, after school, when students are heading home. There is congestion there with them trying to cross the streets, traffic not stopping because they do technically have the right of way. So we're suggesting that we make that a full crosswalk with markings and signs. Start with that, and then if that persists, then we would fall into the category with pedestrian interactions that we'd have to look at a stop sign then at that time period. The town of Shelburne does have a stop sign installation policy, which was adopted by council in July of 2018. The OPPs were contacted for some background data for a number of personal injuries and fatalities within the town. In 2021, we had 5 personal injuries. In 2022, 3 personal injuries. And 2022, 3 personal injuries. In 2023, 8 personal injuries and unfortunately 1 fatality. This one, I'll turn it over to Will, just to review for a bit.
Just gonna provide some background information, benefits to the digital scarcity signs. The immediate right drivers where they're speeding and simply change the papers. Approach these signs by flashing the speed limit, they actually hit these speed signs. So we can take that data during reports and as well, allowed 3 OPP members to have access to these. So they can easily log into the cloud, the software cloud, and get access to the speeds that are being radar where these signs are located. As of right now, we have 4 of these, and in Appendix A, we do have a location of where they were in 2022. So you can see they've been located all throughout town. They are rotated right now. Usually, the road probably will roughly 6 to 8 months at a certain location, so you get more of the data. Because the point of these is you have to collect data for a long period of time to understand what's happening. You can't just leave them over 2 or 3 months and expect that to be related data to what you want to do right. It can be adjusted, so we can currently the vehicle speed on the display board offering the driver's current speed is. If the driver is over the limit, it will flash their speed, just like what they're doing. So they're doing 45 and 40, it will flash at 45. If they're going more than 10, you get that. There's a strobe light on top, which is not white strobe. If they're going more than 10 over, so it'll flash the strobe and their speed. And then it reports the highest speed of that vehicle, so when it hits that sign. In addition, it tracks and reports traffic laws, which are essential to the NMS standards for us for maintenance, patrol routines like repair intervals on our streets, and we follow the NMS standards legally for the maintenance records, as well as the signs have the capability to send an email. So if someone's doing over 70 kilometers an hour, a staff member will get that email indicating that there was a 70 kilometer an hour over, 70 or over. Well, yes.
So just to piggyback on what Paul just said, the reality is we're getting those alerts too often. So we actually had alerts this week.
This
or last week.
75.
Yeah, so we'll get an alert that somebody could be going 70 and 40. And that is something that the OPP also can data. So I'll be speaking to how we're going to do more collaboration going forward on this data. But I think what is critical for us in terms of the digital DDRS is we want to have data to present to you as council, ensuring that the emotion that we know is part and parcel of speeding issue, and not to discredit that because one person going 70 and 40 on your street is not acceptable, but it may not be as prevalent as people believe it will be. There's other factors, for example, too, that influence perception of speed. The size of the vehicle and the sound of the vehicle also have a bearing. But I think when we get to what we're going to go through on the data that we have from the locations that are shown, you're going to see some disturbing information with respect to how often there are people speeding, and we've actually gonna strip out the averages because, something I was trying to understand, how can somebody be doing 5 kilometers? Well, Jim reminded you that if your driveway happens to be at the location of that sign, you're gonna be going exceptionally slow speed to turn in and out, so you are gonna skew the average, so we are tossing that. So, so the 85th percentile is something, while we recognize from an engineering perspective, is used to determine whether or not you have speeding problem, that average is going to skew that. So we basically said, if we only went with the 85th percentile data, we have only 41, most people are going 41, which isn't really, if you delve into the data on the charts, which you all see, you're gonna go, well, that's not gonna help me when I see someone doing 85 in a 40. Additionally, what other communities have done, which we are planning to do, is they are posting their DDR data on the street, so that the public can then see what the percentiles are and how frequent those problems are. It's not time specific. It's also not from tossing EMS potentially that might be having a justified reason to be speeding. But I guess we put a lot of effort into the data for the cameras, which I think is gonna be instrumental going forward. So we're not engineers, and we're certainly a very small team compared to larger cities that have an entire staff team of traffic specialists. So what we determined is we needed to create some categorization, determine, do we have issues? So very, very, very primitive, but very effective, we believe, is categorizing those speeds in 4 different categories. Is it low? So it's 40 to 45 or under. Is it medium? And that's where you're doing 5 to 10 over, which usually is sometimes what you trigger in the ticket world. High is where you're going 10 to 19 over, and because all of Shelburne is 40, that's a concern. Except the connecting link, which is 50, and except that section of county, which is currently 60. Very high is what we're saying, because again, universal 40, is anybody going 20 kilometers over the speed limit. And while we haven't said what the correlation is, the universal understanding in terms of how you fare as a pedestrian or a cyclist is influenced by the vehicle speed that hits you. And the higher the speed, the less likely you are to do well as an outcome. So certainly at a 40 kilometer speed across the town, somebody going 60 seriously hurts somebody of any age that comes into direct encounter with that vehicle. So in 2024, and we appreciate council's support, coming out of the operations reviews that we recommended and it was approved that we add an operations analyst. This will be one of their key functions to help us with data, to manage some of the challenges that we're facing, so that when we come back, when we expect in 2025, or even 2024 potentially, with more costs associated with traffic calming, the data supports the recommendations we bring forward to you. So as already referenced, and I'll loop back to the report at the end, but we put in the budget, which isn't an issue for approval, but they will add a 5th DDR camera, working with Traffic Logics to give us even more data for the rest of 2024 as we move through those. I think what I've just mentioned is what is disappointing, but also a concern is when we get to the chart again, is the high and very high speeds that we're seeing, whether infrequent or not, they are there. And this will also have a connection when we create more of a, I guess, relationship on the data. I mean, when I say relationship, I mean data, portability with the OPP, that might help determine where enforcement is potentially needed. Because if we're seeing a repetitive issue with respect to speed at certain times, which we can actually determine, that may trigger that. The one thing we do know, and it's unfortunate, but it's a reality, that if I'm a driver who's maybe disrespectful of the speed, but I insist on going that speed, those are your cut through people. They will find another route to move from point A to point B. And I also want to be fair, because some of the comments that we've heard from those, that they always assume that it's people coming through our community. And in many cases, what you may see from the data is it might likely be somebody in your neighborhood. It's not necessarily somebody coming through Shelburne to get to another point. It's somebody who's potentially just wants to get home quickly, and is not being, I guess, cognizant of what they're doing. and the dangers that they actually create in the community to their own neighbors. So that is really concerning, but the data will help us determine. So this part, which Jim is going to lead through, because Jamie unfortunately again is not with us, and I want to thank her again. She was the one who created this data using our tools. We're gonna do every road here unless you tell us otherwise, because we want to show the types of speeds that we are experiencing and where, because we only have the data for the roads that we've had these cameras on in those years. So Jim is gonna walk you through it. If you feel that it's too data driven and you would like us to, move it along a little. Otherwise, our approach is we're gonna do every street, we're gonna speak to some of the key issues, and then we're gonna move on to the strategies to address them. Okay, so over to Jim.
Yeah, so our locations for our digital signs that we have out there for 2022 and 2023 are contained in Appendix 9. The Fiddle Park Lane, First Avenue, 2 locations on Greenwood. We get a lot of complaints about speeding at Greenwood, so. Halbert Drive, Main Street East, Morden Drive, Muriel Street, Owen Sound Street, Simon, Victoria, and William. So, as Denise mentioned, our day-to-day expert, Jamie is sick today, so I've done my crash course on this and I'll try and run this through it. So, starting with Fiddle Park Lane, it is located just west of the school. That is where we have the post for this sign location. A lot of our signs we can just transfer back to the spot, hang on a pole that we pre-installed. So a lot of these locations do come up frequently, but they also are ones that we do get a lot of complaints on. For June 2023, our average speed was 41 kilometers per hour, max speed of 78. Over the total vehicle count of 28,516 vehicles, or 2,493 per week, average per week. So as Denise mentioned, throwing out some of those averages, just going with the overages. In the category of 51 to 55 kilometers, we did have 7,903 vehicles over, 56 to 70, 1,806, 61 to 65, 348, 77 to 70, 103, and 71 to 75, 35, 76 to 84, and our top on this was 81 to 85. There was one person there for that.
And that's just for the month of June.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just gave the averages for June. Averages for July and August are there as well. That's the overall 3-month breakdown. So,
Yes.
yes.
Just a question. So I did notice that sign on Fiddle Park. It blocked me doing 102 when I was doing 38.
Today?
Not today, but it's been doing that, so we may wanna check our the data operation of those. It was flashing me red and my son was in the car and he's like, Dad, I'm not seeing red. 38, like, he said, well, that's not what that says. So we might wanna check our calibration.
It's over 102
It said I was doing 102,
today.
not today, but other days, like, recently. So I don't know if it was in that window or not, like, can't remember, but, and I meant to mention it to you, but
Yes, you wouldn't be in this, I don't think so.
There's nobody that high.
there's no that high.
Yeah.
So.
Congratulations.
I think it's 102. But it was doing all the red stuff and everything it was doing, but it was measuring me at a speed that I was not doing, so.
Through your worship, we can check that. There are a lot of sensitivity settings on these signs as well. You can set them as low as to pick up a pedestrian doing 5 kilometers an hour, so we might just have to
Yeah,
check on that just to see where.
and I did notice that we did have probably 4 or 5 days of very overcast weather. So I know that's solar, right? So I don't.
That is one issue. Like, we don't have the sun for a while, it does.
It does,
Yeah,
skew some of the stuff that's going on, so it's.
Thanks for that, that's something I don't think we thought of.
Yeah, if you do have a very overcast day, there's potential there to put a second battery in, so it'll charge a second battery as a backup too, so. You have to,
Especially this time of the year and everything like that, reflecting everything, trying to use those numbers. And not saying that it's not doing what its numbers are good, but just saying there's some variance in there, I think, so.
and they do degrade over time just as any battery, so it could be the life that's coming up too as well, so.
So just to point for that, where I think we feel confident that we weren't having any technical challenges in the summer that would have been driven by, say, solar or battery, because we're pretty consistent with, like, we haven't seen any speeds like that. So if we were having malfunction, we'll go back and check our current data, and if that is the case, then we certainly will deal with that operation.
Yeah. It's funny
Yeah.
on the street. I see that one every day, and it's funny because I was making the right on the Orvis, and it was hitting me, and I was like, yeah, I'm slowing down when you turn, so it's literally impossible to go that fast on the turn, so.
I mean, that one will be out too.
Okay.
Does anybody else have the same experience?
Our next point is, our next point is First Avenue East. So our October, November, and December averages are there again. Fairly close again for October. The average was 40 kilometers an hour. The max speed was 74. Total vehicles, 39,286. Average for the week is around 26. Over that 3-month period, though, the total comes out to 102,477 vehicles. So, with that, in the 50 to 51 category, we have 2,958 over in the 51 to 55. 56 to 60, there's 439. 61 to 65, 97 vehicles over. 66 to 70, 20. 71 to 75, 5, and we top out from 76 to 80 with one vehicle there as well. Our first location on Greenwood is north of the park. Again, we have the months February, March, and April. Again, they're fairly close in average speed there. Our 51 to 55 kilometer zone. In that period, we had 20,098 vehicles over. 56 to 60 was very close to 6,000. 61 to 65 was 1,302. 66 to 70, 278. 71 to 75, there was 44 vehicles. 76 to 80, there was 18 vehicles. 81 to 85, there was still 6. 86 to 90, there was 3. 91 to 95, there was 1. 96 to 100, there was 3. And 100 to 105, we had 1.
There you are. But yeah, in fairness now, we're assuming that these were accurate, there were some malfunctions, potentially that was the case is. That aside, even if you have these that extreme, you're still seeing, people going 66, 70, and 40. Yeah, that alone is enough of a red flag that identifies the issues for us. So we'll make sure that, again, the other thing in fairness, and I know they wouldn't go this fast, but we also have to factor in when we go back for the data drive is, was there an EMS call? Right. Or either fire or ambulance potentially, or police that could have potentially generated a higher speed? Is that limited time? Because that could create concern that really doesn't exist. Yeah.
But EMS, you only see very minimal times.
Exactly, so that's really time specific, which we haven't done time specific for you, but we have the ability to do time specific. So like I said before, if you see if we see a pattern of high speed every day at 4:30, let's say, it's not difficult then to determine, is that the same car? Yeah. Where is that person ending up, and is it in the neighborhood that they are actually speeding in? So there's, I mean, this is where we need to get into more data-driven information to make more systematic decisions and not make assumptions on where things should go based on emotion. This is why this is informative, but it's also eye-opening, I think, for a lot of, I mean, it was eye-opening for us. Because I think the staff, we thought we didn't really have a problem. And we believe that we have a problem that is gonna require significant financial investment on behalf of the town potentially to resolve.
One of the things that always has stuck in my memory since you said it a few years ago, PC Road was here, I think, when it was still shoveling, at least, and one of the comments she made was subjectively, everybody thinks there's a speeding problem on their street. And you kind of spoke to that, when you see cars, you tend to think they're going faster than they are. And I think she brought that up when we were talking about getting this technology. Actually having the empirical evidence is really helpful because it allows us to pinpoint the problem areas. And you know, we can now demonstrate to the OPP or for ourselves that, yeah, these are the areas where it's not just, you know, somebody standing out there thinking there's a speeding problem. We have the data to back it up and show, yes, in fact, it is. So I did passed on that section.
So,
Like,
so as I mentioned, we have provided direct access to the OPP and they designated who within their staff team would have it. So, Mr. Button, Sergeant Button, who's heading up the traffic unit, commented that this is great data in terms of tools. Like, so for example, I know that they're reevaluating the relevance of the black cat. So we, as you probably know, there's no relevance, there's no mention of the black cats in here because it's not a technology that we would actually proceed with using. This provides far better data. And the OPP, I think, is looking at, they support municipalities that have a black cat. My understanding, they don't own the black cats. So we're not going to be investing any time, energy, training, or cost on black cats. But my comment back that I received was that this data is very well structured to provide them with tools as well, which we believe is critical because they can go in and do an analysis anytime they wish as well, and they can create their own parameters on how they want to determine what that street's data is used for.
Your worship, back to our Greenwood location. So this is our second location, just at the south end of Greenwood Park. And these are summer and fall averages for August, September, and October. They're all within that 40 average speed of 43 to 44 kilometers per hour. Over that 3-month period, there's a total of 146,149 vehicles. And our problem areas were 51 to 55. There was 7,780 vehicles over within that time speed frame. 56 to 60, there was 3,896. 61 to 65, 1,536. 66 to 70, there was 498. 71 to 75, 156 vehicles. 76 to 80, 54 vehicles. 81 to 85, 17 vehicles. 86 to 90, 8 vehicles. 91 to 95, there was 2. And we top out at 96 to 100 kilometers an hour, there was 1 vehicle against. We get into a bit more of our residential sections here with Albert Drive. These 3-month statistics are for May, June, and July of last year. All again, average speeds are between 24 and 26 in those 3 months. Total volume of vehicles, 17,458. Again, the majority doing a fairly average speeds. But we do have 51 to 55, there was 232. 56 to 60 kilometers an hour, there was 66. 66 to 70, there was 1 vehicle. So, better, but there's still fairly high compared to our 40 kilometer an hour limit. Main Street East, so this is down by the plazas on Main Street, by Besley Trains. This is from October to December in 2022. Average speeds again, they were a little higher 51 to 51 and 50. So not too bad that way. Total vehicles, 665,061. And there is quite a range here. So 51 to 55 kilometers an hour, 184,508 were over in that zone. 56 to 60 kilometers an hour, there was 99,360. 61 to 65, there was 38,303. 66 to 70, 12,232. 71 to 75, 3,784. 76 to 80, there was 1,175. 81 to 85, we still had 779 vehicles over. 76 to 90, 122. 91 to 95, there were 64. 96 to 100, still 15 vehicles over. 101 to 105, there was 18. 106 to 110, there was still 12. 111 to 115 kilometers an hour, we still had 9 vehicles over. 116 to 120 kilometers an hour, there was 4. 121 to 125, there was 1. And 126 to 130, we had 2 vehicles. So some pretty substantial high numbers there.
Do we happen to know, Jim, like those two in particular, is that middle of the page? Like, I know you probably don't have that right in front of you, but like, is there a way to?
So, to your point, we need to do time data analysis now, because you're right.
Like, I can't imagine somebody.
No,
who's like,
but-
even on the day.
But they do in the day.
At 2 in the morning.
Exactly, and that would be, I mean, you would have your car impounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, and gone, so I think where this may lead us to is when I loop us back to the automatic speed enforcement timing. And how, I'll do it now, because what you're probably seeing is significant volume on our streets of cars. And you're seeing significant numbers of cars that are not on the speed limit. So what we would have to do, working with LEM, the City of Barrie's program, is estimate what our ticket capacity is. And I think at first blush, we have severe capacity options, right? So the issue is this is not about, as we conveyed in previous meetings, this is not about making money on traffic speed enforcement. But you also want to make sure that you have to have an issue that has some semblance of rationalization of cost recovery. Because like I said, it's about at least $100,000 for the 2 cameras. But if we look at our data, then we should be in a position to recover some of that investment, even if we did a 1-year pilot. So if I go back to the recommendation for saying we wait till August 2024 to come back with a report so that we can be prepared for 2024. We may expedite that. They're still in transition in Barrie, they're not full implementation yet. So they're a bit behind with the original schedule, so our timing may line up. The only pitfall with that, as I mentioned, is you could actually invest in the catching of those costs for this traffic, and then people who are very creative teaching them. Right, because they are not gonna be impeded by you speeding, right, unless it, you know. I don't know how to do it, psychologically, if the person is prone to speed, they are going to find a way to speed, but a deterrent will be, so I've done the back end of the report, which I'm gonna do later, but I think what you're seeing from the information, Jim, and I think some of you are going, what? How, the speeding issue in our community, as we've said as staff, has been an eye opener for us from this data. And the volume of traffic that we have on some of our residential streets as well is exceptionally high. So, I mean, I think we're in a position that ASE will make sense for us, both functionally and probably financially, to explore in 2025 or based on these, like, we are not a small community that's got 300 cars going per day. We have thousands of cars per day on our streets. Yeah.
Right, that's the other thing that I find interesting here. I mean, the sheer volume
I didn't
of
expect that.
the traffic that we have. I mean, I think we all know the town is busy, but
So this, where this also helps support the issues is through the transportation master plan that we are now paying for in part and the MCR of the county, which then reinforces, you couple some of these speeds not being small cars, but transport trucks or larger vehicles, then I think it reinforces the safety issue of what we had in the Roma delegation years ago. That the volume of traffic, it's not only, the volume, it's the safety and the impacts of that volume on our community. Like, I mean, these numbers are just mind-boggling on the volume, let alone our own traffic counts, which are not being, like, the main traffic counts that we're seeing from MTO are on those corridors that are within their purview. This is showing how much traffic is going in and out of our town on a regular basis. And this is just the streets we captured. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting, Jim, but I think it's important that if the council is giving us verbal feedback or positional feedback, which I can see from your body language, we're gonna be following up very quickly with all of those that are referenced here, between the OPP, the MTO, the county, for example. We know that pedestrians corridor there has become challenging. I've watched people like literally run across to make sure that they don't get hit.
Is there any way with this technology to determine if any of the vehicles are large trucks? I assume probably not.
Through worship, no, it can't differentiate between a truck, a motorcycle, or a car, or whether it's an emergency vehicle. It just lets you know that there are vehicles over that section of road. We do have that capability to tell you exactly what time those occurrences have happened, so we can isolate that right down. There's a lot more data that these signs will do than what we've shown. We do use those volumes on each road for our minimum maintenance standards, to put us into a classification as well, to know when we need to go out to patrol, fill potholes, sand, plow, as Denise mentioned, that sort of as well, so.
I mean, ideally, we would love to have 20 cameras, which we own and which we pay for, but again, when it malfunctions, it's ours, unlike say the LAS program. Just the camera where you leave that you're sort of risk it's all. But as Jim said, it provides us with a tool for MMS, which is so important. We're just cognizant of the cost at this point, but it's something for 2024, and we're hoping that potentially there may be some movement from the province, and I think there's some advocacy going on. And I think it is, like we have letters on it previous, where these are not going to be limited to community safety zones. That there needs to be the flexibility if municipalities have to manage the problem that is outside of state, strictly only a policing enforcement, then we need the tools to manage the infrastructure required to support that undertaking. Because this is not an inexpensive approach for a small community. If you have to have 19 to 20 of these, I mean, we're just adding one more, and it's $29,000. Is that what it is?
No, 49.
49, sorry, the camera is, sorry, the camera's 49.
Out of curiosity, the storage of the data, how far back can we go? How much storage capability do you have? Do we have years of data that we can store?
Through your worship, yes. Jamie does download this on a regular basis, so we have all that data from years past.
Okay, so just because I'm a technical guy, I understand that storage takes up space. So the question I have is how many years do you figure that we've got capability of storing this information?
Through your worship,
Just rough guess.
I have to check. I believe the signs were before my time, but 2016 or 17. So the data for that should be there. I know when I first started, I used some of the historical data from it, so we do have it.
Okay, so to your point, we'll follow up with that particular question on the next phase with the operations analyst to bring back protocol that we want to put this for 2024. So we want to have more of a guideline policy for this. Again, to keep the community informed of where we're going, what we're doing, and address if there's any. I would think if that was actually a limitation, that would have been identified in terms of this whole pattern. Because they would have said you're only gonna have data for 5 years and then it's solved, it's disappeared. So.
I don't know if we have to run through like
That's
each, yeah, I mean, I think we can
Make
sort
a
of
point.
go through it, and I think we probably hit some of the big ones.
Yeah.
So with us compiling all this data, and I know you've been in conversations with Peter WP, because of the numbers that we're seeing, have they fed back to us of anything that they might be doing in the near future to set up or address these issues that are within?
So we haven't had any conversation other than emails of reaffirming to us that this is great data. I think we'll want to create a more robust connection on this to see how they're using the data and whether, you know, how they're, I mean, this was staff determining how we would, for council's use, present this in a template and structure. There's other ways, as Jim said, to use this data. Myself and my colleagues are having an introductory meeting with Patrick Finner on the 15th, so I'm going to be bringing this up, that this is beneficial. And I think bringing this report, I'm assuming we don't need to forward it, but we will, is to our Charlotte Police Services Board to make sure that a police services board with issue that's discussed with the detachment commander as well, may be strategically beneficial. I'm sure we're not the only community with this, but it's important that there needs to be a cause and a reaction effect to this. That if we've said based on this alone, and it may not be right now, that these are the speeds that we're encountering on some of these streets, yeah. Not the 101 that wasn't good, but that might actually help guide where enforcement is scheduled. And then the other thing I think is important is that by making this public and not, I think it's Newmarket, is it not, that actually posts this, then the community is aware that they're speeding on their street, and they may be aware because through the existing process in the report, the public has said, report this to the non-emergency OPP line. All the detail that you're aware of, even if you have a plate number, car, vehicle, that may actually help the community know. If I keep seeing this same vehicle, which I perceive to be speeding without my technical radar, then that can help the police create some kind of enforcement follow-up. And that's what they do ask, right? Because they can't be in every location every time, we know that. But they're certainly their whole commitment is to community safety. They will be very concerned about some of these things. We know that.
So I know we've had many conversations when I was in the police board with the chief, or like after Shelburne, so with OPP, and he was very, very adamant that we didn't have a speeding machine this time. He sat with me on there and he said he made those comments, so whether they didn't recognize it or see it, but based on the flow, but.
Or that our problem was any bigger than
Anybody else's, yeah, so what we're seeing with the data, finding the data and seeing that data, there's definitely more of a concern in my eyes than I really
Victoria
realized.
is a real problem. So I mean, I think as we're gonna not, which I agree, Will is gonna walk us through what we currently have in terms of traffic calming in place as it's defined. Some of it's been there longer than others. And then we're outlining what our strategy is for the 2024 budget, embedded in the budget, no additional costs. And then I'll wrap us up with the LAS and the automatic speed enforcement. And then we will address specifically the Park and Robert plan Jim has already mentioned, because will show what the difference between what we're doing at Open Sound and Fourth is in this location, so that we're not creating any false expectation of what, I mean, Councillor Bishardi had asked staff, could we do something similar to William and Maine? We might have to respond that that's potentially now a $750,000 solution. It's just, we have to be, what the problem is in the street has to be balanced with the solution that we put on it. So you're not gonna put an overhead crosswalk, say in Robert and Park right there. You're gonna look at a different solution that meets day-to-day need at a certain time, including as council is out, whether or not we put a crossing guard there on the picture.
Just one more that's worth highlighting, I think Victoria Street, so there's like, you know,
Victoria,
close to 30 cars. Over 101.
and to your point, what kind of data is that? We
Yeah.
have to drill down on that.
You know, like those really, really fast ones, I'm for sure are probably through the night, but maybe not.
Morning.
Yeah.
Morning.
I mean, anecdotally today, in front of my office, I got into my truck and there was like a big transport going up the hill, so going north and up Sound Street. And my guess would be probably 80 or 90 kilometers an hour going up the hill. You know,
So just before Will starts, and because Jim referenced it, and I know I've made comments that 30 kilometers has been the direction in a lot of communities, but then there's been communities that have had a backlash because they feel people are crawling through. Collingwood's downtown, the property downtown, we just confirmed, it's 30, so 26 is not, so as you're going to what their connecting link is, I think that's the 50, but it's 30. So we're gonna do a fairly intensive review of the 30, and then it may require some kind of engagement with the community on what they want, and the council hears that the majority of their community is okay with 30. They have to recognize the challenges that come with that, but also, does that make you feel more secure in commuting? And will that, create more congestion where they're backing up waiting to? But just so you know, seems to be an extreme solution that many are implementing because they're just so exhausted with the speeding. And I mean, to your point anecdotally, I'm going 85 up 124 or 85 across 89. If I don't get past in the morning 8 to 9 times, there's something like it's not like the one day I didn't get past, it was like, what just happened?
you were the only one.
I was the only one, no, but I didn't get past that thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, just going to add, keeping in mind too, that most e-bikes will do 40 to 50 kilometers an hour. No problem. So, right, and skate and scooters.
So some golf carts are close to 40.
Yes, so.
Get across town so fast.
Keep going. Yes.
So sorry, Will. We figured this would be a very fluid presentation and we hope that's okay, but I think we're getting reassured that council feels that we have an issue.
Yeah, I think there's enough like of a shock factor there for everybody.
It's just sad though too, because I mean, it's so easily prevented, like it just be responsible, just drive responsibly, like it's really that simple. And yet it's gonna cost us, valuable tax dollars that we could put into something else. When you could just be responsible as a community member in our community, because we said, it's not always everybody just driving through it, right, so.
Well, that was my other point. We don't have a camera going north on 10 as it is by the cemetery, do we?
No, nothing that far.
I mean, you hear the cars blasting.
Well, I'm just wondering, we have a number of cars coming in, you have whatever you said there was the number coming in, how many's actually going out,
Right.
staying in, that kind
Yeah,
of
for
information,
sure.
some numbers too, just to get us fluid numbers,
Yeah.
See who's just rolling.
And not to downplay stop signs, but one of the things that the engineering world has said, if you put a stop sign in a place that is not necessary, and I know that this isn't a justification for anything, but that driver who is impatient and has to stop will simply speed up when they get past the stop sign and create more of a hazard. So that's why where you choose to put stop signs has to make sense and can't be based on emotion. Because if it's a psychological impact to the driver, they are more dangerous past the stop sign than they were approaching it. Because you can't just use it as a speed control mechanism. That's why, we sometimes as staff, when we say it doesn't make sense, it's not warranted. The public is frustrated and thinks it's a solution, but the data will demonstrate it's not. That's just unfortunately what you want. You don't want to use a stop sign to slow you down. I mean, some places have these ones that are the size of like huge, but it's because they tend to be visual issues, not because they're in rural communities and I just don't see it, it's not well lit. But we are looking at whether or not we potentially will need various sign sizes when we go forward with future review.
And then the amount of time that does get saved by that driver that speeds is, I mean, you're
know, every morning I see them at the light. I was just saying. Last she had 7 cars, did that really make fiscal sense for you? She could have killed somebody.
Yeah. There's more gas doing it, yeah, we still get there, let's say the time data, so the closest stop sign, there's so many locations already anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly, and you've got a high miler, well over 100, and the stop sign is not that,
Don't
or making up
stop.
top speed in a short period.
Or they don't stop.
Yeah, I was
That's-
gonna say, don't blow right through them.
Sorry, Jimmy, did you, sorry,
Through your worship, this is one other thing I was gonna mention before we wrap up the review sheets or the summary sheets. Was Owen Sound Street, it did have just under 500,000 vehicles in that 3-month period. And we do have one vehicle that was between 131 and 135, so that's the highest I've seen in any of this data so far.
Be that right across the growth levels.
Yes, between Fourth Avenue and yes.
Yeah.
So it is right in the built up area.
Is that you?
So,
Well, blinding.
Alright, some of the current traffic calming that we've done already over the past few years is lower speed limits in town to 40 kilometers. Community safety zones, approximately 20 dedicated lane kilometers. Major flag we have 4 right now. Road turning with designated market street up into King Street, out with Robert, we just did last summer. Boston Crosswalk, I mean, in William. Cheryl markings, Phil Park Lane, Greenwood Street, and Simon Street, so a total of 6.16 kilometers. Engineered road design, Greenwood Village subdivision, curvy streets to naturally slow traffic. Main Street at Town Hall with the widened sidewalk as well. Enhanced line painting for pedestrian crossings, all road crossings, sidewalk. Enhanced problem signage, I don't on 4, which was expected at the end of last year, but we just got stuff late last year, so we will be installing that shortly, because I go to the contractor. Alice, do you have that picture of what it's going to look like? So it's gonna look something like this, it's 36 by 30, I'm pretty sure that's the size of the pedestrian. So it's gonna be timed, so you can have, you set times up, so I'm gonna set up for 3 times, so 1 in the morning. For school, lunch, and after school. And the outside of the sign will light up during those times, so it'll help with the sight vision of on Owen Sound, and helps with the crossing guard, and all that, to show more visual of a crosswalk. That will not be going at Rotherham Park, it'll be just a crosswalk to start with, right? Because that is a $7,000 thing on that. So over at Rotherham Park is going to be an actual crosswalk, but with just a regular pedestrian sign, and that see what we can do there. So yeah, that will be probably next few weeks.
so where is this going?
Sorry, Owen Sound.
And 4.
what's good,
Let's go over surveys.
That's one.
Because we were there for one project, just for the Owen Sound project, and myself and a couple of engineers, and we were just standing there, it was
Yeah.
crazy, the amount of traffic and no one stopping. So the kids are like, God, and it's like, hold it, like, oh, okay.
And just to
So-
clarify, there is a crossing guard application.
Yeah.
So so while we're not applying this to Rocket Park yet, it's just this sheer volume of Owen Sound justified. And I mean, not that $7,000 is a lot, but it still, we have to do that 9 times.
Yeah,
So this is where we're gonna manage this as a pilot to see how that. And if the crossing guards feel that actually supports their safe crossing of the children, then that may be potentially something to explore in a number of locations.
So this just will flash just during those times.
Those
set
times,
all the
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Not whether there's something that's crossing or not.
No.
Yeah, it should be like notification, the drivers. That they're coming out to the cross.
Well, I'm just like, we always like, this one out here is not a great example because no one stops there anyway.
Yeah.
It's overhead, you can't see it,
Right.
depending on the sun, depending on everything else going on, so
Yeah.
I get that. But the ones that I've seen in other towns, I understand that for school times, it's flashing, and speed limit lowers, your time goes up, if you're going with this, an area. I'm just, Like, if it's flashing all the time during that time frame, is it actually working?
Right.
You know what I mean?
People.
I know we don't know
Us
because
seeing it.
we don't see the data yet, but that's my only concern is that, especially when it's not just flashing when when someone needs to cross. If it's flashing for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours, an hour lunch and 2 hours at the end of the day, is it actually calming traffic?
At least with having a crossing guard there.
Exactly,
That's-
and I like that,
So, I mean, I think again, we presume to staff that the majority of crossing needs at that location is for school related.
Yes.
If it was similar to Maine and William, which is now all pedestrian needs, which is different, then other solutions would be critical. And we, again, I mean, between feedback from the crossing guards and from bylaw and from the data from the sign, we should have, again, I said, we're getting an ops analyst, this is part and parcel of what we'll be doing.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, having a crossing guard is a pretty good safety mechanism with a dedicated sign as well for advanced warning for the drivers. And we'll build on, like I said, Councilor Wagner, it is frustrating that as a municipality, we have to invest this much money to deter behavior that is just so questionable.
It's insane. Seen in the past too, and I just don't want to get that is, I don't know how to educate people that are crossing the roads too, right?
Exactly.
It's a crosswalk, not necessarily someone has to stop,
Yeah.
and we seen that happen, last year when the flow shifted and we ended up shutting down the roads, you know what I mean?
So to your point, one of the traffic calming tools listed is education.
Yes.
It's just how far can you get with trying to change behavior by educating? You have to, for the crossing, you have to educate school children as well as the parents that you're right, you just don't walk out of the traffic and stop.
Yeah.
But we can, I mean, as we explore where we're going, I mean, some places have done campaigns where they actually have children that live on those streets or poster children on the sign.
Yes.
You know, Joey lives here, like slow down for Joey. But again, I'm not sure what the data says on how effective that is, because I think there's some analysis that people get really good at tuning out signs.
Yes.
Right, so this is where that ticket, as we've seen with the $40 parking tickets, is what changes behavior, but what we don't wanna see is a ticket because you created a fatality.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we don't want, we're not willing to take, that's why we're saying we gotta do something.
And I think that's a perspective to keep in mind, yes, it's frustrating to spend $7,000 on this, but I mean, quite honestly, if it saves one life or 3,
But
I think it's
I totally agree.
expensive, you know.
Yeah,
Far
so-
from that, but
So
yeah.
is this, when we put this in, is it's done and it's in that location and
No.
it's staying there, no, it's movable?
So what I'm hoping for is. I'll get all ahead now, but
He does it all.
so when we do the rebate of Owen Sound, we've also, we're gonna be community events, you'll have an actual crosswalk. A little bit, not like this one, but a little bit more enhanced with a buy and all that. So we gotta get the pricing and that, but since you'll approvals and that, so that, what we will have there now, will get moved over to Gordon and Owen Sound. So that's another bad crosswalk, as well.
Yeah,
Or a crossing guard.
the seniors,
Gordon,
Hey, Gordon, on Sunday, yeah,
Okay.
it's just there as well, because some of the cross guards say sometimes traffic doesn't really stop there, because you get a little bit of a crest of a hill there, so people don't want to be, so we can move that there or wherever else. It is movable.
Gordon 89.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gordon,
Yeah.
89, sorry.
Okay.
So, as long as we're not stuck.
No,
We
it's
see-
not.
we See it as proven, we can reutilize what we've got and invest it in different locations. It's,
And in fairness, like, we don't want to create limitations because the budget is not.
Right.
I mean, for example, if the data demonstrates that we need to do more action in implementation of 2024, we will come back to council with budgetary impacts and how we would actually fund that. Whether that means realigning budgets or changing priority and, you know, making some adjustments, we will do that.
Okay, yeah.
Because we, like, to the mayor's point, there's no nobody who wants to put public safety and the safety of children in jeopardy because of budgetary constraints. But again, as I said, you've all echoed, it's beyond exasperating. As a municipal government, we have to spend any money and this extended money to manage behavior.
Good. So just a question on topic, if it was, so one day when I was going through Fiddle Park, the crosswalk there at the public school. Did we have bylaw acting in uniform that day there?
Yes.
So,
Doing counts.
sorry?
We're doing counts.
Yes, I figured as much, so, and I know OPP has sat in the CRC laneway and watched traffic flow in that area. Is there anything that we can ask? Could we, our crossing guards are gonna see it, and our bylaws are gonna see it, but they can't react, you know what I mean? Can we request that they spend a day in different locations through a town, or is that a cost to us, or I don't understand, I don't know, but it's just a question, because then they can see what's happening, right? Cause I noticed, right?
So I think I mentioned already that the importance of this data and the same software package is the OCC had others too. What we hope to create is a stronger working relationship. When we create data, even if they don't, we will pass that data on to them.
Yes.
And hopefully that will create a schedule or a strategy or an awareness of where enforcement might be necessary in terms of how they choose the directions for the officers that day. And to Jennifer.
Through your worship, we have a strong partnership with the OPP officers that are dedicated to traffic enforcement. And prior to the start of the school year in September, we met, including the crossing guards staff bylaw, we met with the OPP. We continually ask for that, and when time permits, they are in town, they are actively patrolling. Bylaw is there, the bylaw is actively patrolling as well, but the bylaw role is in regards to crossing the children safely.
Yes.
And that the vehicles are parked in the correct locations.
Yeah.
The speeding goes along,
Yeah.
so they are there, they can't be there every day,
No, I
but yeah,
expect that,
we
so.
do request that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Good.
And again, where those two connect is in the absence of the officers needing to be everywhere at the same time, which you know is impossible. Where you can supplement that change in behavior is for the occupancy enforcement, which we obviously, and we will address, and if we expedite it in 2024, we will. But there's certainly going to be, if you get a ticket for $100 and something on a regular basis, even though the ASC system has no points associated with it, and it's a different protocol, the ticket is still a significant cost that will probably have you second guess doing that again. And it doesn't preclude that if you get caught on the ASC, for example, that if there is enforcement by the police, that still goes through the other system of POA and still would then affect your points and your insurance.
With the ASC, they still have the same opportunity to fight it in court.
No,
That's the one.
it does not go through the POA unless you choose it, so we would be looking at the administration penalties process, which Jennifer can explain more. And what, I know I'm getting to that, so what this city of Barrie's process is based on is a quasi turnkey operation. Where all the administration and the cameras are funneled through their LAS City of Barrie program, there's about 70 municipalities that choose to participate. The only, I guess, challenge at the moment is based on the provincial requirement that because of ARIS and the data to the plates and all the information, you must have a staff person that adjudicates that as a staff member that's authorized staff member, so it couldn't just be whoever, it has to potentially be a bylaw officer that would adjudicate that. And that could be time consuming if you look at the number of tickets we have, so you could actually then create a dedicated adjudicator that does nothing else, and you have to factor that into your cost. We're hoping that potentially there may be some, not only segue from only ASA being in community safety zones, but that there might be some flexibility on how to centralize that administration. Right now, there's not, but maybe in the future there will be, because we talk to staff, we could be a municipality that has massive speeding problems at 80, and you're not community safety zone. But you also are a municipality that's predominantly rural, let's say, you don't have bylaw. You don't have the administrative support to now address your speeding problems, and in those cases, there may be fatalities associated with these. Okay, sorry, Will, you're back.
So expand designated mark on street parking, appendix 10, this will be on Wood Street.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be adding some parking spots on that street, just to narrow the street down a little bit, because that seems to help reduce speed somewhat, like you're noticing on Greenwood a little bit when people are actually, with the new parking there. The ones that actually follow it, don't drive in the parking spot, it gets really tight, right, so people are like, oh, that's really important.
Yeah.
Until we put a center line down Greenwood, which is part of our next year or this year, where you can have, I guess the center line will guide traffic, center of the road now instead of more of on parking. And plus, we're going to have all those levels parking, so you can't drive through anymore. So it's gonna throw the traffic off to the left of it.
Right.
So the framework, so, and then, flexible bollards for Phillip Park and Victoria Street, appendix 11.
Does everybody know what those are?
So you know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
so, sorry, Alice. So originally when Jim listed off everything he had, which was on page, take a report, they're all, these are all links, so they're automatically, so this isn't necessarily that's the product of mine, but at least it gives you a sense of like the mayor asked, what's the difference between a chicane and a bollard, or, and one is permanent, one is flexible.
Yeah.
But at least you understand the bollards are seasonal, they move, so if you smack them, your car shouldn't get damaged. And traditionally, what you do is you remove them during winter maintenance.
That's
They're not
similar
building
to
any.
what you had explained when I wanted to speak on something.
Right.
Yeah, so there they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
So that isn't like, sorry, Horning Mills. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
so
that's,
Collingwood's got quite a few as well. And I've
yeah,
been
and so does
through them.
Paladin.
Yeah,
All grade.
yeah, they do.
Noticed.
Yeah.
so,
But
no, I'm just saying they're flexible, so if you hit them, but they're visual that you, most people would want to not hit them.
It goes through where we're going. They're trashed. So bad.
So we're gonna try these.
think it'll help in Victoria especially, because right now, people don't have open fields, used to the 60 or whatever, now it's 40, but at least we can narrow that down a bit and make it our slope a little.
Yep.
So that's the main reason for these, and then, yeah, we remove them in the winter for winter maintenance. Speed cushions, do we have one? Yeah. So the difference between speed cushion and speed bump is a speed cushion is meant for EMS, so they can actually straddle the speed cushion, so it doesn't affect them as much. They're a little bit wider and they're less aggressive, but still 2 cars, you can still slow down for them as well. And that will be going on Greenwood Street North. Just past, what map is that, 13, I think it is. Appendix 13.
So I just wanna clarify, because we're trying to be data driven.
Yeah.
That when we identified from the DDRS information that Jim overviewed on what streets we would actually implement additional traffic on, it was based on that. So for example, we have a problem in Victoria, those spots on Greenwood indicated problems. William is 25, mass speeding not the case. So we tried to create what we think is an interim solution to some problems to test this. To see, because that would what would be, if speed cushions are effective, so we would have to do a before and after. So if we find on Greenwood, once we put in the center median line, or we put in the parking on William, what was it before and what is it after? Because then, for example, if it changes the behavior, then we probably will not want cameras, or get cameras as much on those locations.
And those speed could,
No, they're removable.
They are.
Yeah.
It can be removed. And that's why we chose those.
I assumed they were until I saw
Stop sign.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, cause it gets kind of crazy in there.
yeah. It is pretty wide there too, right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, some people have told us, well, why don't you use the time they have in the mall parking lots? That is not effective on a quick. Because that is really not gonna be something EMS, fire, and ambulance supports. It creates a problem, it can create aerials for some. We just can't go there, so this solution that we think is supportive.
So will those get removed in the winter, Jim?
Through your worship, yes, or they just be shaved off if allowed to be. So there is markings that do give you a warning before too, so there's a prescribed distance, you have to give warning for it as well.
But you already addressed that, we're gonna
Yeah.
ask that in the next possible. Okay, so back to me, I think I've covered almost everything through the course of this conversation on automated speed enforcement. So the recommendations are four. One, you're through the board, common sense, that you support the bylaw that we have presented to you so that we can advise the MTO that we are formally reduce the sections of the connecting links within the town of Shelburne from 50 kilometers to 40. And once we provide that notification of council approval, we will proceed with our forwards. Additionally, we're asking that council support staff's recommendation that the section of County Road 11 and County Road 124 that are within jurisdictions identified prescriptively on that map be reduced from 60 to 40. And for all the same reasons, even though we have not monitored the speeds, we're assuming that because the speeds in those corresponding areas are what they are, they're most likely similar or higher on that. And additionally, with the development of Fieldgate and the plaza, the walkability to the school, that intersection is exceptionally busy. And there's a lot of food services in there too that we understand the children of the school will go to on their lunches. The last one is just an update in terms of the timing that we haven't recommended, even though council asked about the costs for speed enforcement in the 2024 budget. Within the budget framework, we said we have not yet included it and that we needed more time to evaluate it. So this would be based on us participating potentially in 2025 and coming back with a report to you in August of 2024 on the budget implications. That said, recognizing some of the data and the number of speeds and the volume of those speeds that are exceeding the limits, we'll work with LAS to determine whether or not it makes sense for us to maybe expedite that to Q3 2024. But we'll come back with that report as well. So that really concludes everything on behalf of our report. We have included, again, the budget is modest, it's about just over 14,000. It has no impact to the existing approved operating budget. We've incorporated all of these costs within that budget by utilizing our existing operations maintenance budget. Anything more than that, we would be streaming to eliminate, and which we did to accommodate this. Additionally, for example, if we were to put a crossing guard at Robert Inn Park, Jennifer would have to look at that. I think we're estimating that the crossing guard is about $14,000 a year. You would have to just recognize that that's going to displace other costs, and we can't perpetually fund things from reserves like on the tax stabilization approach. So we would like to have a proper report, but we believe that some of the solutions that we're suggesting right now, particularly Robert Park, may be resolved with some of these other, more visible crosswalk, dedicated time, and then that's it. So we did do quite a bit of review, what other municipalities are doing. Again, we don't have a traffic department, like say some of the larger municipalities. We did exceptional amount of work in looking at what those solutions are with all those links to show you. I would like a roundabout, but I'm kidding. So there's certain things that are just not within the functional need of like a roundabout. We don't need a roundabout. We can't do things that other places that are large would do, like overhead crosswalks with bridges. We're just not there, but so that's the conclusion of our team report. I think we've asked a lot of questions, but certainly if there's any more, we are happy to answer.
Okay, because you summarized the four kind of components of the recommended motion, I'll ask for mover and seconder now, and then if there are more questions, we can do that. Councilor Beacon, second by Councilor Sample. All right. Any other thoughts or questions? Thanks, thanks for doing that. Pat's on our thanks, Jamie, who's not here, but. Yeah, but again, I think, I think it's critical to have that empirical evidence to say, yes, what I think a lot of us suspected was the case. Now we know it's the case, at least in some significant areas.
Maybe we can pass on some of these numbers to the province and get a podcast.
Well, I mean, that certainly helps the cause, I think, right? So.
Well, I mean, $1 500,000
Yeah, exactly.
in 3 months.
Yeah. So I mean, really, it's statistical data that basically say, we're not lying to you when we say we need this finance.
Well, that's why I asked if we could get one of the cemeteries, if you're trying to like kind of
Coming out of this,
so.
yeah.
Just for a short period of time, if we have numbers coming in, and we have 10,000 coming in, and we got 5,000 going out, we know we got 5,000 cars staying in town. right?
Well, yeah.
Which is right.
You just look at the sheer volume of those numbers that I consider a little less than 10,000 here. Obviously, a large number of those vehicles are travelers, which again, we all know, but
Yes.
yeah.
Numbers talk.
Yeah.
So I think what we'll do is, I think it'd be beneficial for those points that we share this report to our neighboring.
Yes.
Not that we wouldn't, but I think they may be, they could use some of our data to look at what they need to do. If they have a camera that then captures their volumes, then we can connect the dots a little bit more.
Yeah.
We already know from some of the undertakings with the speed, say in Mulmore and Bono, and probably North Millington, they have challenges as well. They also have the sad reality of fatalities. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were moving on.
No. All in favor?
Oh, that would be for nothing.
Yeah. Carrying on. All right, and the last report is also from our CAO, and I think it's gonna take as long as
I think this will be 3 minutes.
some additional funding for the community risk assessment.
Thanks, Mayor Mills. Through the mayor, during the budget process, we did identify that there were savings of approximately $10,000 that council adjusted the community grant. And then we immediately said, because of another project and the timing, that we needed to reallocate that. At that point, we weren't really sure of what the final cost would be. The community risk assessment is required under legislation, and I put the OREG that's there, so it's not optional. And the sophistication of the data that needs to be provided is not something that we're capable of doing in-house. Potentially, we might have been with a lot more, I guess, resources, but we're not. Most municipalities, as we're aware, are using consultants to do this. We participated through the Orangeville RFP, where they provided us with, graciously, we thank them, with the ability for their process to then allow us to pick one of their preferred consultants, which is the process we undertook. So we picked, there was 2 companies that were listed as preferred. We chose to negotiate with the one company that's based in Sydenham, which is considered local. We eliminated a couple of components in that to help save us some money. So we will not be having a formal presentation to council. You will have a report. I most likely will highlight that for you. And we're capable of converting any document to AOD compliant for us for reasons for provincial. So that shaved a bit of cost off, but still the budget is 8,500 more than the 10,000 plus HST. We were able to charge that to one of our development charges studies accounts to balance it off, so it has no impact on the approved operating budget for 2024. And we have actually started working on this process already because we need to hopefully get it done. It has to be done by July, where our goal is to be done by May and have it fully submitted to the OFM. And that really is the report. We'll be working closely with fire department staff, with the consultant, and we have quite a few number of staff, including myself and most of the senior management team, will be devoted to this project.
Motion then to receive the report and to approve the additional funding of 8,500 plus HST. Favor? Any notices of motion? One piece of correspondence in there, with respect to a motion that was passed at the county council, has been supported by at least Mona at this stage, I think probably others by now. Which also was sort of in support of a motion passed at the Western Gordons caucus, which is the last meeting that I attended, about the strong marriage legislation. So it's basically rejecting the notion that legislation, asking province to rethink that. So, yeah, so I would like to make a motion to support here to support the county's motion as well. So we can accept that. Any thoughts on that? Anything else in the list? Motion to see the remaining items as it were making. Examples, later, all in favor? Carried. Permitting bylaw. That's right. Second by Councilor Teagan. All in favor? Carried. And motion adjourned. Thank you, Mayor Hall, second by Councilor Teagan.
Sure.
All in favor? Carried.
At least it went to adjourn.
In fairness,